Great. Hi, everyone. So this will be the talk about MEV and xDAI with Flashbots and Nethermind, testing proof of stake MEV ahead of Ethereum 2 happening. So my name is Tomasz Kajetan Stanczak. Great to be invited here to speak at EDCON. So maybe start as a reminder, what's MEV? MEV is a minor extractable value, and in Ethereum 2 it becomes a kind of validator extractable value. And it's all about reordering, censoring, and injecting transactions in the mempool while constructing a block. So all that value that can be extracted by executing practically those three operations. And why we say it's minor or validator extractable, because they are the ultimate acceptors of the block in whatever form it is. So even if that MEV is extracted by someone else, it has to be approved by minor validator. And in the past, this would be something that will be available only to miners without any democratization. And nowadays, we're talking about MEV in the context of access for arbitrageurs who are cooperating with miners using various types of tools. And what's xDAI? xDAI is proof of stake based with 20 validators, but open to more Ethereum sidechain. It has faster blocks. It has arbitrary message bridge. A stable coin is as a native currency. It's backed to mainnet DAI, so you can move the DAI to xDAI between there and back. And it has quite a lot of DeFi activity. It's much smaller in this regard than mainnet, but it's a great playground and a growing network that's cool to play with MEV in. And MEV itself in Ethereum 1 mainnet nowadays, already as tracked by explorer.flashbots.net, already amounted to around $700 million. And it grows significantly during the periods of increased volatility. It does use the opportunities that arise from big price movements, because you have temporary misallocations of assets, temporary decentralized exchanges showing different prices. And also very often, if those price movements are rapid, then you can have multiple liquidations of various DeFi protocols that are available for whoever is able to access those via MEV. And currently, you may be aware that Flashbots Relay is available to deliver the bundles, so-called bundles of transactions extracting MEV to the MEV clients like MEV Geth. And this allows multiple searchers, so anyone independently trading and analyzing the chain, to interact with Relay and deliver that. So you don't have to work directly with the miner. You can use that relay in between that ensures that you have many miners to work with. Now, in Ethereum 2, what's particularly important is we will have, after the merge, MEV for validators, and it will significantly increase the rewards to validators. On top of the existing reward for securing the network, you also can expect that MEV will be an important part of the cash flows. And generally, MEV will become VEV, if we can say it, or simply we'll keep using the same term. And it will be important to know that validators are known slightly ahead. So it changes a bit how we interact between the searchers and miners, or whoever block builders and miners. We deliver information early to very specific validator. We can decide which validators to work with some of the MEV that is available on the longer term of time. It opens a few other things that we'll discuss later. And generally, this research of Ethereum 2 MEV can be tracked at Flashbots FRP 13, Flashbots Research Proposal, where we discuss a lot of those different scenarios, like how exactly MEV behaves in Ethereum 2. And when we discuss those scenarios, you can think of multiple levels of, okay, you simply run a validator, or maybe you go a bit further, you start extracting MEV. Sounds like a must. But then maybe you start splitting cash flows and trade and decide whether you want more risky or less risky cash flows, whether you want to maybe sell your MEV cash flow, and then go further and start asking questions about multi-block MEV, a bit unexplored, but potentially very powerful tool. How things interchain, interlayer MEV when you start thinking about layer 2 and side chains and mainnet interactions. So for the MEV post-merge, there are a few proposals, or maybe many of them, but few that we really look at a bit more deeply. So for sure, we built examples of MEV SGX in Ethereum 2 on top of the existing Flashbots MEV SGX. So more like hardware-based, ensuring privacy of the bundles delivered to the validators. We too work with tools like block builder proposer splits that were suggested by Vitalik. So it's more like consensus level idea where you ensure that the rules of the fork choice and the rules of the accepting the block are built into how Ethereum 2 operates. We experiment with carrier transactions that are more like a way of delivering those transactions, MEV bundles, using the DEF P2P network directly to validators, because suddenly when you know upfront who the validator is, you can send those messages much earlier and encode them, encrypt them in this method for a specific validator. And so because of all of those splits between block builder, block proposer, the validator, the searcher, and so on, we start to see that there are multiple possible dynamics between all of those participants. So the stakers, validators, and so on may define how exactly they split MEV rewards, and it all depends on their power inside the construction, the consensus construction in Ethereum 2 after the merge, of who exactly has a final say of how the block looks, who exactly can choose from multiple different parties and choose the best option, and how they can compete with each other and so on, how they discover and how they also value the partners that are smaller or bigger or more trusted and so on. We want to remove that trust requirement and make sure that the small validators and small block builders and so on are equally important in the system. Otherwise, it may create some difficulties to how to secure the network efficiently. And when we explore the MEV on sidechains in layer 2, very often we start asking the same questions. So we start having, in many of the solutions, we have validators. It's more like proof of stake solutions, xDAI being one example, but we also have Energy Web, we have Polygon. We have layer 2 solutions which have more like sequencers for the transactions that are delivered to mainnet. So Starknet, Arbitrum, Hermes, Optimus, zkSync, and so on and so on. All of those competing L2 solutions, they at sooner or later they'll start asking questions about how to efficiently use MEV there. And we ask questions about intrachain versus interchain MEV. So whether we stay inside the sidechain or try to ask maybe, is MEV available when you start being a validator sequencer on both networks? Can you do something with that? And so using xDAI MEV with Nethermind, knowing that Nethermind is now practically a major client supporting xDAI, or almost the only one after Open Ethereum is no longer supported, and many validators already switched to Nethermind, and probably around about 50% of the validator network for xDAI is operating on Nethermind. We could build the MEV delivery, like a bundle delivery tool for xDAI. And it uses simplified Flashbots Relay architecture, as we were building that in cooperation with Flashbots at Nethermind. And it uses Nethermind MEV plugin architecture for adding all of this bundle support on the validator side. So it's similar to MEV Cash construction. Initially, it started with 1 out of 20 validators, and soon you can expect that majority of the network of validators will be accepting bundles in this format. And then you can think of examples of where we can play, experiment with MEV. It can be Dark Forest, Perpetual Protocol, which is one of the major DeFi projects on xDAI nowadays, but also lots of other AMMs, DeFi projects, and you can start exploring that similarly as you would slowly learn about using MEV on mainnet. And why xDAI is particularly important why did I start talking about Ethereum 2? Because both xDAI and Ethereum 2 are proof of stake networks. And when we start asking those questions about how to solve the problems, it means that we can experiment with those on proof of stake networks, sidechains like xDAI. We can use them a bit as a canary network for the value chain, the chain that already has hundreds of millions of dollars value locked, for testing the concepts like multi-block MEV, interactions between searchers and the block producers, like the block publishers. And one of the things that we also want to test is how the MEV cash flows can be split. So can you look at, in the future, for the Ethereum 2 cash flows, you think that, okay, first of all, it's fixed return from the current number of validators, the reward from Ethereum 2, right? The validator return. And then you have a bit of a dynamic component. If there is a fluctuation of number of validators, you add new deposits, you add withdrawals. And then there are transaction fees and MEV. And these are very different risks and reward scenarios. And you may start trading those cash flows and as a validator, as an operator of many validators. And you can use some of the existing or future protocols, Euler yield protocol, and integrate those maybe as Lido, Rocket Pool. I think we can see some interactions of those pools in the future. So thank you so much, and please contact me if you want to explore further some of those concepts. And you can find myself or Nethermind at Twitter. Also writes to me at Flashbots or Nethermind. Thanks a lot, and I hope that you start using xDAI in the future. You use it for experimenting how it will work in Ethereum 2 to run MEV.